able to cover far more. So when we work with our colleagues at trade unions, we use our members on the board, because that's the other thing that was not happening, is that our members, the members of the board, were not working as stakeholder educators to go back home to their constituencies, COSATU, FEDUSA, and NACTU, to go and say to them, hey, we sit on the board representing you. So for heaven's sake, let's work together to make sure that we spread the word, because that doesn't cost money. That doesn't require money. It just requires us to be ambassadors and champions, as all of us as South Africans should be. For example, we came out of October, which is Productivity Month. We had a productivity summit, I think on the 27th something of October. We also had a presentation to Parliament for research on just transition. We've been very busy. So whenever we get an opportunity, we use the spreader effect a chair to get to as many people as possible, in the hope that we as agents, we're going to catch someone or some people who are also going to spread the word on our behalf. But it's very limited what we can do on our own, Chair. We need help. We need funding. We need to employ more people. And there's no way we can have this productivity revolution that the country needs and the recalibration that the country needs without that assistance, Chair. I hope that given the time constraints is enough, so the CEO can also cover the other aspects, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to talk to the issues relating to working with others, particularly within government, and that touches on the issues raised by Honorable Bahrain and then also Honorable Ndabe. As part of the things that we do, as the chairperson indicated, the paper that we produced last year was actually beginning to give shape what we think is good practice. Because we researched what happens in Asia, we researched what happens in Scandinavian countries, and it was clear, if government does not collaborate with business and labor, we're not going to succeed. So we have moved, now we're working with the Department of Small Business Development, we're working with the CCMA, we're working at an advanced level with the DTIC, as well as economic development departments in the program, the provinces, as well as in the districts and the metros. So that issue about the lateral thinking, I think that's exactly where we are. The chairperson has indicated on the board we have 2 members representing trade unions, and part of the things that we do, particularly with the outreach programs, is to, as advised in one way or another by the committee as well, is to simplify the issues of productivity. Because quite often workers think productivity is about job distraction. So we have turned that around. All our messaging about total factor productivity. Honorable Mkonto, if you look into the presentation, you're going to find particularly the slides where we are making a thorough expansion on the informality challenge. We've identified the challenges. You can see that if you look at the spread of small SMMEs, and the unfortunate thing is over 63% are in Gauteng, Western Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal. So we have no alternative but to go to the rural provinces, which need us the most. So part of our program and APP, you will find that we are focused on that. And that is why our focus into the future is working within the district development model, looking at the 44 districts, and in those districts, target the most marginalized enterprises so that we support them. The issue of information and data, Honorable Ndabe, it's not wrong that the CCMA gave what they gave, and we're giving you this statistics as per Statistics SA. What happens is the CCMA will capture the companies that report to them in terms of Section 189A. And then we're able to work with them in adjudicating in terms of the temporary employee relief scheme. And then those companies are channeled into the business turnaround and recovery. And thanks to the department that they proclaimed that for companies to participate in the TARS, they should participate in the Productivity as a Business Turnaround and Recovery Program. So the numbers are different precisely for that reason. And as the chairperson said, we had a discussion in the department, and there is a thinking towards making it mandatory that every big company, irrespective of numbers, should report so that we're able to capture appropriate data. Honorable Nontsele, it's definite. We will continue reporting on the work that we do in the business turnaround and recovery program. The board has indeed given us exactly the same instruction. On a quarterly basis, we report to the board, and I think we'll create a mechanism that the report, once sanctioned by the board, it gets into your hands, into the committee's hands, because we give a comprehensive analysis of what the challenges are, what are the interventions are, and we are able to show improvements. I can assure you, we're seeing drastic improvement in terms of those companies that we assist. However, because of capacity constraints, we're not able to reach everywhere, but we're doing everything in our power to arrive at that. Part of our intervention programs, all our programs, be it the competitiveness improvement program, as well as the business turnaround and recovery program, at the center of it is what we call workplace collaboration, precisely to empower workers to be able to understand issues of productivity. So you'll see in the plan, in the report, we're talking about the number of productivity champions that we trained, and most of them are workers, and the target is down there where we are needed the most. I'm hopeful, Chair, that I've covered all the issues. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor, Chair, and the CEO and the team and all other board members. We'll appreciate, on behalf of the committee, I think we'll appreciate if we can also be circulated the papers that you have produced on the areas that you have cited, so that we also see how best can we then have an understanding and more engagement with the economic cluster in particular, in terms of our counterparts as the committees. And I just want to say thank you very much. It was quite an exciting presentation, and we hope to see you, and want to apologize for the challenge that we have created in terms of change of dates. I did say to you, Chair, that unfortunately we will have to do that. It's not because we were deliberate, and want to apologize for any inconvenience that we may have caused. So I know, I'm sure through the office of either the DG of the minister or the minister, we are interested in those papers. I am interested in particular, and I hope all members are interested in those papers, because they will assist in empowering and in us moving forward. And yeah, thank you very much. Until we meet again, we will now going to receive the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the whole committee. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Commitment of the papers, Sawafman, amaphepha.
You will get all the papers, Chair. The CEO will make sure you have all of them, Chair. They will be with you, Chair, no later than close of business on Monday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Nkosi kakhulu. Nkosi.
Nkosi, Chair. Bye-bye.
Bye. Mr. Sakaza, is Ccma ready?
Yes, Chair, they are here. I see them. Mr. Murajane is actually the co-second chair. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. Ungathi siyakuwa unfair challenge yomuntu othetha mva kakade uthetha yonke into ethethwayo ngabantu. I-challenge yomuntu othetha mva kuthiwa please sicela ungabi mde. But yeah, that was on a lighter note. But please, Director, understand that we've been here the whole day, but we are interested. Not that we're not going to ask questions, we are. But yeah, thank you very much. Over to you.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Chairperson. I will. I did promise UTG that we'll do our best to make sure that we have dinner today, and then we'll just touch on the key aspects that have arisen from the AG and the questions that arose from there. And some of the aspects I will skip that I think you know. I will not repeat them. With me, Chairperson, I advise the DG, the Chairperson of the Board of the CCMA, Professor Inos Ngojana, has joined us for this presentation, together with my executive, Anna Mukharinyana, Governance and Strategy, Mtembeni Nganano, who is the Corporate Services, and also, I think I've covered Nkosi Kona Nkosi, who's the ICT, and then the Chief Audit Executive on the audit side of things has also joined us. So we have a full complement of the team, as we always honor the PC when we are called to account. And we intend to do the same at the level that you expect us to, but very economical with time. That we will do our best to make sure that we meet that standard, Chairperson. And then the Chairperson of the CCMA governing body is a new Chairperson, not that new, started last year, technically December, but because of COVID, you could not have met him. And he's here today. I will ask him to switch on his camera so that you can see him, so that the committee can also see him. He will present the formal side of there he is. That's our Chairperson, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee. That's the Chairperson of the CCMA, Professor Inos Ngojana. We work very well in ensuring that the entity becomes what it is. Thank you very much, Chairperson. You will switch off the video and switch it on when you present. Chairperson, there's a number of slides, as you may have seen, over 40 number of slides, but we won't talk to all of them, as I said. The Chairperson will speak to you on the slide 1 up to 12. And then from then almost up to 18, I will not talk to those because those slides is the narrative of the programs and the pillars that you'll be seeing in the presentation that he'll be presenting about. So I won't talk to them. As to their content, which is very important for context, especially in relation to some of the questions that AG has raised and some of the questions that members have raised. Particularly, I will comment briefly on the question that I think my colleague, Mr. Mutunya, has responded to, Honorable Mdabe's question. I will just add an important dimension to that question when we're dealing with job saving. That question is a very valid question. I think I did raise this point at some point about a coordinated joint reporting on certain aspects. But there are other factors that are affecting that outside that, which I think we'll bring to your attention. And then for future process, we'll see how we coordinate. So I will touch on those at the right time. And then CFO will talk on the finances. I'm quite conversant and content with the content of the report. There are certain important aspects arising out of that I will touch on when she's done. And some of the questions that Chairperson that have been raised in as far as the AG is concerned, on the cost side, the irregular expenditure side, CFO will touch on that. I will touch in addition to that if there's other things that she may have missed, but we have listened to the presentation thoroughly. We've made those notes and we will respond so that members are satisfied on the questions that you've raised, that we have answered them to your satisfaction and give the true picture of the state of the organization called the Ccma. That will then conclude our presentation. Chairperson, at the time of questioning, we will answer all questions. And if there's questions that we may need assistance, the team is here so that we make sure that we don't leave with any questions unanswered. And having said so, Chairperson, and without taking too much time, let me offer Chairperson, he will use my slides. I will move the slides for him because I'm sharing. I will move the slides for him to assist him to present, and then I will take over from there. If it's okay with you, Chairperson, that's how we wish to present our annual report.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
All right, thank you very much. Prof, I know that we have Prof Mdwaba who presented for productivity. I have you as my prof also presenting for the Ccma. So we're making progress in the portfolio committee and the Dell family. Thank you very much. Over to you. Over to you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that brief introduction. Let me also take this opportunity to thank the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Labour and the members of the committee as a whole. We are quite aware that you started very early this morning at 9 o'clock. We are therefore not going to be wasting a lot of your time. I'm sure you've seen our presentation. It covers a few items that have been highlighted by the director. The first one being the constitutional, legislative, and the policy mandate of the entity. Secondly, we'll be looking at the enabling legislation and the mandatory functions. Please don't move the presentation first. I'm just doing the introduction. Enabling legislation and mandatory functions of the entity. It will also look at the strategy overview and progress of the entity, programs of the entity, the non-financial results, the annual performance plan, the financial performance results as already indicated by the director. It will also look at the program implementation and the funding. Lastly, it will focus on the audited results of the entity as a whole. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. The Ccma is presenting its annual report, the report that covers the year 2020 and 2021, in line with the requirements of Section 55(1)(d) of the PFMA. Now, in line with the financial year itself, the Ccma's implementation of this program, of course, started from the year 2020. It will see us going through year 2024 and 25 in terms of our 5-year Imvuselelo plan, which we also term the revival strategy. Of course, the CCMA has revised the program itself, or if you like, the annual performance plan during the financial year, due to the deadly and debilitating effects of COVID-19 and the budgetary constraints that we are still faced with. Now, despite all these challenges, Chairperson, the CCMA continues to strive to make a meaningful contribution towards labor peace and equity as the strategic intent of the Imvuselelo strategy. Of course, this is in line with the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations that talks to decent work and economic growth. The CCMA's job, of course, in terms of saving jobs, we have seen our effort in making sure that we address the issues of making sure that the jobs are saved. As you can see, we've come up with an effort where we saw about 58,165 jobs saved from the likely ones that were supposed to be retrenched, totaling 138,816, with the actual retrenchments record standing at 74,747. The total number of referrals that came through the system during this financial year, of course, we recorded the number at 154,143. Now, central to the work that is delivered by the year in review, these were extensive planning processes which were meant to reposition the work of the CCMA appropriately in responding effectively to the CCMA's legislative and discretionary mandate. Lastly, on the executive summary, Chairperson, we are committed to labor peace and equity, even more important, more especially now during this turbulent economic condition that we're facing. And this aspect, Chair, talks to the sustainable goal number 16, which talks to promoting peaceful and inclusive society for sustainable development. Thank you. Let's move on. Now, in terms of the constitutional legislation, as indicated that we'll deal with it in terms of our policy as well, you can see that the CCMA continues to be a statutory body that was established in terms of Section 112 of the Labor Relations Act of 1995, as amended. Now, in terms of Section 113 of the Labor Relations Act, the CCMA remains to be an independent of state, any political party, trade unions, employer and employer organizations, federation of trade unions, or federation of employer organizations. We are truly an independent state entity. And sitting right at the center of our mandate as the CCMA is the Labor Relations Act that focuses with its 4 pillars of economic development, social justice, labor peace, and work democratization. Move on. The mandatory functions of the entity focuses on those 5 areas: to conciliate and arbitrate workplace disputes, assist with the establishment of the workplace forums, compile and publish statistics and information about its activities, administer the Essential Services Committee, consider applications for accreditation and subsidies of the bargaining councils and the private agencies. And we've done very well in these areas, Chairperson. Move on. Now, the discretionary functions are outlined. There are 9 of them. Supervise the ballots of trade unions and employer organizations, provide training and information relating to primary objectives of the Labor Relations Act, advise a party to a dispute about the process to be followed, offer and to resolve disputes that have not been referred to the CCMA, Chair, those are listed there. They are presented in our report that we've given to you. Let's not waste time by taking you through all of them. Thank you. Now, looking at the employment law framework, you can see that we've categorized it into two, looking at the South African Constitution and also looking at the International Labour Organization policies and conventions. The South African Constitution will focus on the Labour Relations Act, your National Minimum Wage Act, your Basic Condition of Employment Act. Now, when we talk to the ILO, we relate in terms of the Employment Equity Act, Unemployment Insurance Act, and the Occupational Health and Safety Act. This is a very important act, as you know, we call it Act 85, which covers the entity right from the green area up to the highest section of the organization itself in terms of managing the risk and the safety of the employees. Thank you. Now, our overview strategy outlines a few of these aspects, starting with our vision and mission. You can see our vision. We want to be a world-class institution that promotes labor market stability, social justice, and job security. Very important vision. The mission itself looks at giving effect to everyone's constitutional right and freedom. What are the strategic pillars, Chairperson? There are three of them. First is to optimize the organization itself in terms of efficiency, in terms of making sure that we manage our budget and our IT systems in a very efficient manner. We enhance labor market stability as pillar number 2. And pillar number 3, support strategy implementation in terms of governance within the organization as a whole. Thank you. In Versailles strategic programs, there are 5 of them. First one, it's high performance institution. We want to be proactive and relevant to the labor market intervention. We specialize in interventions and supports institutions. Number 4, efficient and quality dispute resolution and the enforcement of services. Lastly, effective strategy management and governance of the total entity. Thank you. Chair, I'm going to be stopping on that slide and allowing the director to proceed, taking us through the programs, and the CFO will focus on the financial performance results, the implementation and funding, and in terms of the audited results. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson, for that submission and as the foundation to what we're going to present moving forward. Chairperson, these are the results appearing. As you can see, this is over a period of 5 years and up to 2021. The progression, as you can see, if you look at the number of targets that we may have missed or not achieved over a period of 5 years, they're quite minimal. This is a reflection of our commitment and in terms of quality performance for purposes of delivery or service delivery. This is the graphical presentation of how the graph looks like in terms of the performance I just spoke about over the period of 5 years. Moving along, if I go to slide 22, this is a reflection of the current financial year and the different programs and how they've performed. And I will not take you through that for time purposes, Chairperson. The bottom line is that the total achieved as presented is 84% and not achieved is 16%. And I will then present to, I'm sure the members have read, these are the reasons for the targets that have not been achieved. I will not spend too much time unless there's specific questions. The one that I just wanted to highlight, the financial one, it was supposed to be a 1.1:1, but we got to 0.89. And this is one of the targets that was affected by the cash reduction at the Ccma because it had a direct impact in COVID. So that one we could not achieve. The second one, which is the positive rating on participation evaluation. This one, it was an evidence issue. As a result, there was no performance in that regard. So we did not want to continue to fight that. And then the rest, I think, is self-explanatory. Chairperson, I'll proceed to slide 25. 24, it's a continuation of explanation. The one that is on the screen, which we had intended to have 100% performance, we could not because there was no that we received. This target is dependent on a referral, then we can achieve that, so we couldn't. And the slight percentage difference on the quality of awards. Quality of awards is the actual outcome. We've set certain standards that it must meet. It is being issued, it is being served. There's no issue in as far as service delivery is concerned. But this target, we always want to make sure that when we issue it, the award is enforceable and it is of the quality that we have set ourselves. So, and that's an important target for us. And then this is a very important slide, slide 25. A very important one because some of the questions that arose because of this slide. I'll just talk to the first three. Chairperson, the rest, yeah, it can just be read. On the first one, you will see that the priority we're talking about contributes to outcome 3, the economy and employment. And we received 154,000 referrals. But of great importance is to understand that in terms of compliance on this statutory target, we achieved a 99% achievement in as far as the compliance is concerned. And also the rendering of awards that I spoke about, which is an important part because that's the outcome of the entire process that you do. And we've served them on time to parties with a -1 percentage point that we missed for it to be 100%. So that's very important also to understand that the referrals that we're talking about were largely affected by COVID lockdown from level 5. That's when we switched to online processes and digital platforms. And we're quite conversant with the side effect of that process, but we had to react that way. And that's what we did. But it's proving to be quite successful. But we have to find a way to be an inclusive process to make sure that those that don't have digital platforms are able to access our platforms very well, like everyone else. I will not talk to bullet 3 because there is a slide that talks to the sectors of referral that we are talking about. The last bullet, Chairperson, it's important that it must always be remembered that the Ccma has 35 bargaining councils that extends our mandate of function that is based on certain sectors, public service sector, the public health, and the road freight that the minister spoke about is also accredited by the Ccma. So our oversight function also to make sure that we achieve the purpose of the LRA extends to those bargaining councils because we accredit them to do what ordinarily would be done by the Ccma. So it's quite an important slide to note. And then the referral pattern you will see on the right-hand side over the period of 5 years, how the numbers have been. Of course, it's affected by different factors for those referrals. I will not talk to this slide, Chairperson, slide 26. This is about in terms of the Act and the referrals. These are the sectors that I mentioned on the 2 slides earlier that shows you the different sectors. At the high referring is the business and professionals. And all of that, those that are not covered below are also captured there. And the numbers as at the current financial year. I will then proceed to slide number 28. This is an important slide also because it has to do with the amendment of the basic Conditions of Employment Act, together with the introduction of the national minimum wage. Our mandate still remains there. There are certain challenges now with less capacity to enforce the National Minimum Wage Act and dispute of wages and all of that relating to basic conditions. But in as far as the year under review, we've received 24,000 referrals. And, you know, as you would know, that the referrals for the national minimum wage, we have to use the basic conditions to do so, because the national minimum wage does not have its own dispute resolution clause. So there is that statutory dependency that is created by that. I will then proceed to slide 31, Chairperson. Now, this is extremely important. In as far as the questions that were asked, I think I will load the response to the question that was asked by Honorable Ndab on the question of the productivity and the likes. You will see that productivity SA in the first bullet there at the top, that productivity SA plays an important role in our single adjudication committee that deals with the normal tariffs. One of the challenges that we faced is a challenge of having to explain to the public that there's two types of tariffs. There's the normal tariffs that we know, that's where the Ccma is together with Productivity SA, UIF, as part of that committee that makes decisions. And there's the COVID-19 related tariffs, which is adjudicated by UIF. So it's different from this one. So the figures that you see are figures that are just for the normal tariffs, not the COVID-19 tariffs. You will see that in 2021, we received about 121 applications, and then we considered 88 applications, and then only 22 were recommended, and others were defective and withdrawn, right? And then if you look at the total number of beneficiaries, is 3,531 that benefited from that. And the total funding that is allocated for that is 166,134,088. The booster program, we've spoken about that in the past. That's very important. And I'll deal with the double matter also on the slide that talks on the dashboard, because it's also provided there very well as well. Here, Chairperson, I won't spend time. Governance, it's throughout today, and when AG presented, at the center of what they're talking about, it's about governance. And one of the things then, as the Chairperson presented in terms of our strategic pillars and also our programs, you will see that governance and strategy is quite important, and contained in that. That's where Anna is on the governance and strategy. You will see that they've quite succeeded in the Ccma for us to achieve a 5 Ccma risk maturity rating, which is quite important. And that is important for us because it contributes quite significantly into a well-run organization that understands governance and its components and other pillars that is resting on. So that's quite important. This is supported by the second bullet, which deals with the 48 legislations as part of the compliance regulatory universe. So we are looking at all legislation that are affecting us. That's why when the AG talks about compliance in their report, we take it serious because we have 48. The PFMA is one of them, but it's not the only legislation that we're looking at. So that's why for us it's quite important. That's why it was helpful for us to not have achieved, which I'll talk about slightly later, in terms of the high level of our overall performance in our audit. So that's very important. I think it's important that members note that we've done quite well in as far as governance and process of the Ccma, because it's very healthy, and we want to keep it that way. Our risk management is very healthy. We're happy with that. And then the others, I will not talk to the complaints. We have about 299 we received, and then 265 were resolved. And so we're quite okay when it comes to that. I'll proceed to slide 34, Chairperson. I'm a graphics. Now, slide 34, this is the dashboard. I want to go right in the middle, the 42% job saved that Honorable Mdaba spoke about, on that very good point that he raised. One of the things that we must never lose sight of, that when we are talking about job saved, and we've been consistent in this submission, it's only referrals that we've received, like Mr. Mutunya presented, It's those that we received at the Ccma, and this is how we've performed. We've set ourselves a target there of what we must achieve in as far as the job saved is concerned. And if you look at the total number of the jobs saved, it's not just individuals, these are families that we're talking about. The Labor Relations Act that you as the legislature have made, at its heart, is job security. This is what the Constitutional Court has confirmed. So if we are able to save 58,000 in a collaborated function, and together with productivity aside, that I think is worthy of an applause, even if we have to do it ourselves, because we feel good that 58,165 people still have jobs in the country. And if you take into account what productivity reports, and if you look at that jointly, as Dole family, it's something that we can take pride in. This is one effort that if it were possible, but the resources don't allow, we would quite expand it, even our partnership with productivity SI. I think at some point, I think I did present, Chairperson, in the past that we do have a memorandum of agreement that we signed with productivity, so that on matters of job saving, job creation, and productivity, and all other facts, because they are experts in that, we are lawyers and commissioners, a combination of that produces this type of results. And I'm quite happy with that. And what needs to be noted is that there are retrenchments that you'll find they happen, but they're not referred to the Ccma. There will be retrenchments that happen that are not referred to the productivity SI. So every time we present statistics, we must always remember that the statistics do not represent those employees, those workers. You have sometimes single employees being retrenched, sometimes it's less than 10, and you know what the LRA provides on such. So there are certain legislative imperatives that create that environment, but at no point would we present this report that it is a complete picture of the state of retrenchments in the country. So that consolidation of information, research, and credible information, as Honorable Mdabe said, is quite critical. So an integrated approach is necessary. And it's a matter of enhancing what already exists between the Ccma and productivity SA. And finally, on that slide, you will know, Chairperson, that the settlement rate, we've been quite consistent and very successful with that, sitting at 70%, as you can see there. Now, Chairperson, that should, I will not talk to this slide because it's our outreach program where we do training and capacity building, all of that. This not only was killed by COVID, but we don't have resources to do as we used to do. If you look at the numbers in the past, and yeah, you'll see that the numbers are different. But it's a very wonderful program of teaching people their rights, how to refer. For example, the issue of the vaccinations that we are talking about and the type of cases that we've received so far. As of Friday, we had about 10 cases that we've received. I did one conciliation on that. And as I was busy presenting in a different platform, SABC and everywhere, we received additional one, like 3, while I was talking, we got 3 additional ones of employees that are dismissed due to vaccinations. During these programs that we do on these outreach programs, we normally teach people about those kinds of things, and it does have a positive impact in terms of referrals. So, Chairperson, that is as fast as I could run it, but being comprehensive in as far as the non-financial performance results of the Ccma, as promised that the CFO will present on the financial performance of the results. I'll make certain concluding remarks and dealing with some of the direct questions that came from the AG. Even that other one, that arose out of the AG's question today. And then I will conclude afterwards. And then that will conclude our presentation after that, Chairperson. And with your permission, Chairperson, I will ask CFO Kiribon Mashahomu to present on the financial performance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director, and good evening to the Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members of the committee, to the DG as well, and the colleagues at large who are with us in this presentation today. I'll take a cue from how the Director presented and try and elevate the key issues from the financial performance, as the presentation has already been shared with the committee. Director, if we can just go to slide 37, which talks about our revenue for the financial year. In this particular slide, what the slide is talking to us about is showing us that we had planned to have revenue of 955 million for the financial year. And in that total revenue that we had planned to have, we only could not collect about 130 of it, which is way less than 1% of what we had actually planned to collect for the financial year. I think what really stands out from this revenue collection slide for us is the under collection that we had from our investment income. And this is purely due to the economic conditions based on the investments that we were making as an organization on the grants that we received from the Department of Employment and Labor. There was also a slight under collection on the funding that we received from the Department of Employment and Labor with regards to the sheriff funding. This specifically helps us with the enforcement of awards as we do the work that we need to do, because this is also part of the critical activities that we embark on as an activity, as an organization. As far as services rendered is concerned, there we slightly collected over what we had planned to collect, and this was due to mainly the discretionary functions that we had offered, and revenue was collected from those discretionary services. The funding that we collect from the discretionary services, it's purely on a cost recovery basis. We don't make huge margins on it. So we are just making sure that where users need services, we provide those services in terms of our discretionary services, and then we recover the cost of those services as and when we offer those services to them, particularly things like training. It's one of the key activities that we do in that particular area. If we can move to slide 38, which talks to our utilization of the funding that we had for the financial year, you will see that we almost spent the entire budget that we have, with an exception of 4.8 million, which was not fully utilized in the financial year, which makes the not spending just below 1% of the total budget that we had for the financial year. What is key on this slide is, although there is an amount reflected as not spent, in terms of the instructions that we have from National Treasury, this amount was not surrendered. Therefore, there was no surplus that was surrendered to the National Treasury. I think what really stands out in this particular slide is the underspending that we had on operating expenses. However, what is key also to note is that even though we had underspending on operating expenses, this is what really assisted us to deal with the overspendings that we had in areas such as case disbursement, which is the core of our business. And members will recall that as we were trying to play a balancing act with all the financial challenges that we were experiencing last year, we had to make some of the tough decisions around things like case disbursement, where things like part-time commissioners had to be suspended for a particular period so that we eventually can be in a position to actually spend within the budget that we had for the financial year. That being said, it doesn't mean that we were not able to do what we wanted to do. You will note from the presentation that the director has done, most of our efficiencies, we were still able to achieve them. For example, our conciliations, we were able to do it within 23 days. Our settlement rate was 70%. So it's one of those challenges that we had, and which was a very difficult challenge that we had in terms of the financial year. However, we still strive to make sure that we maintain financial sustainability as an organization, and at the very same time, we make sure that we still deliver on the core mandate that we have as an organization. I will then move to slide 41, Director, which talks to the audit results, which the AG has spoken quite extensively about in the morning, as far as the portfolio as a whole is concerned. So for us as the CCMA, we have received an unqualified audit opinion, and this unqualified audit opinion was there as a result of us making an adjustment on one of the line items within our financial statements, which is commitment. And we also made some adjustments on performance information in the financial year. On the area that we have made adjustment on, there has been a number of activities that we have put in place as an organization since we have received the outcome to make sure that this particular issue does not recur in the next audit that we will actually have. What do I mean by a number of activities that we have put in place? There's an audit action plan that has been developed, which is now being tracked by the governing body and the Audit and Risk Committee. And they track our performance in terms of each of the key milestones that we have indicated that we will achieve to make sure that we actually correct the misstatement that was actually identified. At the heart of the action plan that we have developed, our key focus is to make sure that we have consistency in terms of our daily disciplines and making sure that reconciliation is done overall and it's done with the correct supporting documents that we have for the organization. I will then move to slide 42, which talks to our fruitless and wasteful expenditure for the financial year. In the financial year that we had 7 cases for fruitless and wasteful expenditure. In the 7 cases that we had, all of them were actually dealt with. We fully processed them, and where action ought to be taken, we had taken action and then made sure that at the end of the day, there is nothing that is remaining. If you look at our financial statement in terms of fruitless and wasteful expenditure. We also have irregular expenditure, which AG has also spoken about earlier in their presentation. In the irregular expenditure that we had, when we started the year with 91 million as a balance for our irregular expenditure. And in that 91 million, we had about 57 cases that we were dealing with. When we concluded the audit, the 91 million was fully dealt with in terms of the processes that we needed to deal with. So meaning that the 11 million that the AG was actually referring to has now been fully dealt with, and it has now been removed of our books after we had implemented the remedial action that we wanted to implement based on the outcomes that we received from our loss and control function within the organization. So these cases and this 91 million, after dealing with these cases and the 91 million, our balance for the financial year that we were left with in terms of irregular expenditure was only 355, which was represented by 3 cases. In these 3 cases that were remaining at the end of the financial year, 2 had already been submitted to National Treasury for condonation after we had done the work that we needed to do. We just missed that 2 in terms of the cutoff of the financial year cutoff. So National Treasury has already condoned those 2. And then the one that was remaining, we were actually implementing the recommendations that we had received from the Loss and Control Committee around the remedial action on that particular case. It has now since actually also been submitted to the National Treasury. We are just waiting for a response from the National Treasury to deal with that particular case. I think this area particularly is one of the areas which the director and the board, they are very passionate about in terms of making sure that we stabilize the environment and we do not allow recurrence to happen in this area. And where recurrence has happened, we swiftly deal with it in terms of the processes that we need to follow. As such, there's a communication that has been issued within the organization that emphasizes zero tolerance on either fruitless and irregular expenditure. And it was very clear that should any staff member be found to have transgressed on any legislation that creates any of these 2 sins within the organization, they will be dealt with as we have already done so in the other cases that we have dealt with, Chairperson. I think that brings me to the end of the presentation. I'll hand over to the director to do his concluding remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, CFO. Chairperson, I want to close with these following points, which are very important. I did submit that I will do so. It's not on the slides. Number one, the AG said that if you looked at our misstatements in the performance and the financial statements, they presented that we must improve on our in-year review of our financial performance and our performance information. We have done so. I know by now one of the findings, we have about 10. One is already closed, and there's only one material finding. So basically, we've got about 9 that we have to do, or 8 that we have to do in the current financial year arising out of that. So the in-year review is being implemented. I can confirm that. And also, the important thing, AG said that in terms of our performance, you saw a lot of greens for us there. We are on a greening project to make sure that everything that needs to be green must be green. And you saw our supply chain is green, IT governance is green, all of those kinds of things. I think for us and for my team, I have serious gratitude for that because under very, very trying circumstances, very, very limited resources, they've managed to do so with COVID that came in, with the budget issues and everything else. They've managed to do so under those circumstances. So that's why we got that report. The AG said there's no movement in terms of our performance. For me to maintain what you did the previous year, that's not a bad thing. But for us, if there's to be any movement upwards, it means we are going to a clean audit. That's the only stage above us now that is left. And as advised that actually it's that material finding relating to compliance that made us not to have a clean audit this year, because we had it until the last moment. It was taken away from us. It would have been movement forward that AG was talking about. So that's why you see we're still sitting on that legend that was presented. I'm very happy, Chairperson, while we're talking about preventing irregular expenditure and fruitless expenditure, you noted from
What has happened? Is he muted or Mr. Sakai?
It looks like the director is affected by load shedding.
Yeah, probably at load shedding.
Yes.
Oh, okay. But I think he was almost done. My concern is that questions are going to be asked, and I hope the board and the other staff will then be able to respond to questions. Can we then, if then is members are okay with that, can we then ask questions, hoping that other staff members, DG, can you assist? Is the DG in?
Chair. Good evening, Chair.
We are going to ask questions now, and it looks as like that the director has been affected by load shedding. I just wanted to check that in his team,
Yes,
will they be able? Okay.
Yes, there are officials, Chair, in the yes, that
in the
will be
team.
able to,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, you are right. DG will be able to respond to the questions
Yes.
from the members. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Honorable members, there has been the presentation by the CCMA. Any questions? Hands?
I do have.
Honorable Baygram, can I just check who else? It's Honorable Baygram, it's Honorable Mkondo. In that order.
May I go ahead?
Yes, Honorable Baygram.
Thank you. It's a pity because I did want to ask Commissioner Cameron the question, but I'm sure it'll be answered The reality is, I still believe that the CCMA is the crown jewel of the Department of Employment and Labour. This is the one that produces results when employees need the Labour Relations Act, the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, and their rights enforced. And it's always the CCMA that's the go-to place. The problem that I've experienced, and I'm sure the whole country's experienced over the past maybe 14 months now, a little bit longer, is that service delivery is being affected very, very badly because of the cut in the budget to the CCMA. And I'm hearing this from trade unions across the board, from employees. Hundreds of employees are telling me this. And I don't know how we're going to be able to ensure that the CCMA is properly resourced for the future. It's good that the DG is online here, because the DG can have a look at it. But not only is it affecting trade unions and staff, but it's also affecting the CCMA's own staff. They're facing a strike at the moment, a possible strike. I know, and I speak to staff all around the country of the CCMA, they're working 12 to 14 hours a day. The administration is under-resourced, understaffed. It's unbelievable. The commissioners are sometimes doing 5 arbitrations in one day, which is impossible. And it's affecting service delivery across the country in the CCMA. And like I said, they are the stalwarts. They're the people that stand between unfair labor practice and unfair dismissal and justice. So I just thought I'd wanted to ask that and see what they're going to do about it over the next year, because their budget gets cut again next year. Thank you.
Honorable Mukondo.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, it will be a comment and a question together. Chair, Mr. Nguchane talked about the decline in the number of referrals. Chair, we are all aware that during the level 4 and level 5 lockdown, many workers were in need of the services of the CCMA. So the decline logically is because of CCMA was not accessible because of the online and the digital applications that were applicable at that particular time. So, Chair, maybe we all of us have to agree that these budget cuts for the CCMA are not working for the workers, and that maybe we have to request for a budget increase, so and make sure that CCMA is more accessible. Because as it is now, CCMA is only found in big towns where it is even difficult for people to travel to such towns. Maybe we have to, Chair, look at how can we, first of all, have a joint effort for CCMA to have an adequate and efficient budget. And number 2, what will be the strategy to make sure that it is accessible? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mukondo. In the absence of hands, can we, Honorable Nonsel?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, my point is also to welcome the report first and to appreciate the positive and the steps that have been taken. Can you volume yakho, Chair? Volume yakho, Hello? Yes. Chair, the point that I'm saying, I wanted to check whether from the CCMA perspective, with regard to the nature of disputes, whether they can be able to ascertain that some of the disputes are as a result of the absence of the appropriate level of skill, say, for instance, at the shop floor, wherein this could have been dealt by shop stewards. The question, therefore, is not necessarily to argue on behalf of unions, but to check the extent to which CCMA itself can through partnership programs forestall such a challenge by making available support programs at the shop floor, that is through representative unions, so that you minimize the kind of workload that the commission is faced with regard to dispute resolution, and particularly the resolution of cases. Because if you look, for instance, in terms of the analysis that they have given on the extent of the disputes that have been referred, you would find that some of the disputes are essentially disputes that should have been resolved at the shop floor. Yes. So I wanted just to get that sense from the CCMA side. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you, Honorable Mansell. Yes, I want to, for myself, it would just, but as he has talked about the level of skills in terms of the flop shop of shop stewards at the workplace. The employers, is it a deliberate thing in wanting to retrench, or are they committed in following all the processes in terms of retrenchment? Because if I just wanted to balance. Thank you. I don't know what's wrong with my gadget. I'm sure it's tired, but yeah, that was my last. Can we get the response from DG, from the staff of CCMA that is around?
Chair, I don't know whether they're not affected by load shedding. I'm also sitting, just about to sit in the dark inside. Chairperson, Uchana?
The Lapa Chairperson.
Oh, Ukona. Yes, okay, over to you. I'm sure you had the question. Eh?
No, I didn't hear the questions. The team just sent me some of the questions. If there are questions that I've missed, I'll be glad to respond. The one question I understand is relating to a strike at the CCMA. Honorable Baggerman, I'm told you asked a question. It's reported in the media. Let me confirm outright that we did issue a joint media statement with the association or the staff association at the CCMA. There is no strike at the CCMA. There's no pending strike. There's no dispute declared for it to lead to a strike. And the notice we've issued to the media says so. It's just that the media likes to sensationalize it because somebody, a faceless person, called himself a voice of reason or something like that, took some of the discussions and engagements that are happening internally, because we have a recognition agreement. In the recognition agreement, it sets out stages at which we should be at in case of disagreement. And And when the first phase was not successful, not that there's big difference issues, we do this every year. This is no different from those years. And then when the meeting is on Friday this week for that level. And so that phase is closed. So there is no strike. And so this voice of reason took that information and as part of what he calls the pressure to us to agree, sent it to Business Day, saying that there's a pending strike at the Ccma with an intention to pressure us to agree to whatever that is being proposed there. The approach that we took in as far as the increments are concerned, it is in line with what government is doing. The 1.5, for example, we are following that. And the association also realizes the strain under which we are operating under at the Ccma. So for the committee, you can note that direct report from us that there is no such a strike. And even though the media reports it at the end, that part, but they start with the drama first and they're associating it to the budget. So somebody is peddling a new narrative which we don't understand. That then this and this and that and doing all of that. We don't play those kinds of politics. We just focus on work. So we've responded to that. So that part we've dealt with, Chairperson. You'll excuse me, Chairperson, I'm in the dark. So the issue of employee health and wellness. Is the staff under strain? Absolutely. Is the level high? It's very high. So high such that I have, as the director, started a wellness program together within the broader wellness program that we have. I establish walking, I establish running, we're establishing running clubs, walking clubs, hiking. We do all of those kinds of programs. We've covered almost 180 or so kilometers in my team in running and walking to make sure that the stress levels do not collapse us. And also that we strike a balance between work and home, because there's a new thing called online fatigue, that we spend a lot of time on online issues with our hearing online, all our meetings, our board meetings, our exco meetings, interdepartmental are all online, and therefore you end up overworking beyond the normal because of that. So when we looked at our report of our health and wellness of our staff, it is at a point where it's worrying quite significantly. Some of the functions that our staff is doing, they're doing 2 to 3 jobs per person. The commissioners are limited to 5, the part-timers, but the full-timers are unlimited in terms of the number of cases they must do. And Mr. Bakram is correct that you allocate up to 5 per day sometimes, because what we don't want to do is for workers to wait for cases to be done because we are allocating 2 or 3 cases per person. To a point, Chairperson, it will not be surprising that I'm doing cases now myself. One of the cases relating to COVID-19, the mandatory vaccination case, I started with one last week already. And I've dealt with one that has to do with the CEO of Health Professionals Councils, and Peter de Villiers now is here with his case, and many prominent cases. And now I'm getting into the collective bargaining. So while we do what we account to you now, in as far as everything else that we've reported, what we're not telling you is that we are working beyond what your job definition says in order to make sure that we're able to do what ought to be done. The reports that you see, it is as a result of that. It's quite a challenging process. And as I'm talking to you, after this, I start preparing for a case that is coming up for a meeting of the provinces tomorrow to check how they are doing exactly what the AG was reporting, that we must have these in-year review processes. And we're doing that. And tomorrow we're meeting with the provinces to talk about the outcome of Parliament, the outcome of the AG report. But in the process of that, all our managers nationally, provincial managers, regional managers, they're all doing cases. I'm no exception. I'm not saying I'm a director, so I must do cases. I'm a lawyer. I'm a commissioner. I must do cases. So sometimes you have to do that. So I'll continue to do cases and see until the situation changes. And the managers, those who can, they also do cases. But it contributes badly to our health. though, that I'm not complaining. I'm responding because that's the question that is asked. It's not good. That's why I've tried to adopt these alternative methods to get the staff healthy and happy and laughing and playing, so that we can be able to balance the health, so that if they break down, I don't know, you know what will happen. I don't have to tell you that. So we're going to try our best to make sure that we do that, but we can't stop the long hours. What I can confirm to you that the long hours are not forced by management. These are voluntary engagement that the team is making, but I can see that they are really not coping. And I've started a program also called How Are You program. The How Are You program is a program running from the director's office. This is the program where we agreed that when you ask a fellow employee, how are you, you must be honest about how you feel, not the formalistic one, how are you, I'm fine, I'm okay, when you're not. So we do that, and then we open lines. If you've got a problem, here's the line, phone, and having all those support programs. And that's for all our offices around the country. We're trying to do that. So I'll be traveling around all provinces with my team and regions to go and engage in these health programs with them while we're doing cases. So as I choose cases in provinces, I do the same so that we get it healthy. So that's the response to that. I'll close it on that, Chairperson. And then on the question of Honorable on the workplace empowerment, and whether is in the slide that I presented earlier that talks about the capacity and outreach program, part of the programs that we do, I think maybe in the next time when we come, we'll present those programs.
Director, Director, can I request, because we're all going to be challenged with load shedding.
Okay.
Please, if you can try your level best to be just pointed and short,
Okay.
because we'll please.
Yeah, we do have programs, Chairperson, of workplace empowerment, workplace mediation, support programs. It's just that now we don't have resources to, because we have to use our part-timers to go and do the non-case work, but we can't afford to do it now. So the limited ones that we've been doing, we're doing. I mean, if you've seen the mass march strike, the Sakau strike that we are talking about, for example, right? And many others ones, not the only one. Some of those we can, in fact, empower for workplaces to its workplace dispute resolution program. We can do that, in short. And there was another question, just quickly, on the impact of budget cuts on service delivery. It does affect it directly. That we can say without doubt. But we're trying to adjust and adapt on what we've got to make the best of what we have. We do understand that, you know, budget doesn't only affect the Ccma, it affects other departments as well and all of that. But that's the reality in short, Chairperson. Accessibility, yes. There's two things that affects accessibility for us. One, it's the COVID, because we did ask, because the cost of the PPEs and all of that, it's a lot of money. Last year, it cost us 6 million rand. For us to open offices, our numbers will double, but we need to cater for everybody. We can't afford that. So there's a relationship between the two. Does it affect accessibility? Yes, it does. There are those that can't access us because of the digital platforms. That is a fact. That's a direct response. Thank you, Chairperson.
Chairperson, while you are there, can you please also address the SALGA agreement in response to the question raised by Member Mkonto?
Oh, okay. We also create partnerships, Chairperson, because of money. We spoke to the South African Local Government Association because they've got the spread all over the country and in areas where we can't reach. We've tried the same with UDG, where we piggyback on the department's programs like the mobile buses and all of that, and trying to share our referrals and all of that. So that agreement has been done. We're going to be using SALGA offices in the municipalities so that we can improve on accessibility given the challenges that we have. That's the alternative that we're creating, so that we don't have to pay for venues where we go. Because when you go to guest houses, to other places, they charge us money to use those places for hearings. If you can look at some point when you have time, we'll show you the picture. When we look at the outlying areas like in the Northern Cape, because of its size, if you can see what commissioners go through to go to cases, you'll really give them an award. Some of them travel the whole day just to do one case, traveling 800 kilometers, sometimes 1,000 kilometers to get to a venue where you can do a case. They will be out of their houses for 2 weeks to do 3 or 4 cases because of the distance they have to travel. They have to be paid for the car, they have to take the interpreter with. It's very, very difficult and painful conditions. But the SALGA approach, we hope, to the extent that it can, it will assist us on the accessibility question, but we still have to pay commissioners that go there. Mostly it's part-time commissioners. So now as we speak, we've increased it from 5 to 10 cases per part-time commissioner. But that's just until the end of the financial year. On whether we'll still have 10 or 5, it will depend how our budget looks like next year, February, March, on how far we can take it, because that's what dictates. We have to meet all the obligations that exist. So I guess that, and thank you, Chairperson, with that question. I've just ended that in the response. And thank you very much. If there's any other we didn't respond to, I will not talk to the other parts that I want to, when load shedding happens, Chairperson, we'll deal with them next time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. DG, is anything that you want to reflect on?
No, Chair, thanks. Just on the issue of budget cut, I think the director spoke about it, and that's something that equally concerns us as a department, and we're trying our best to make sure that CCMA is resourced, given the important role that they play. We are talking to National Treasury, and we're also looking at our own savings to make sure that we augment their budget. But it is a concern, Chair. We're not taking it very lightly. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Is the minister and the DM around?
I don't think so, Chair. I was checking. I don't see them.
Okay, it's fine. I can see myself. They're not here. No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, members, and to all the office of the AG, the department, and DG for really being patient with us. I know, members, it has been quite a long day, but it was necessary and important that we continue. And my apologies that we have put members under pressure. It was just circumstances beyond our control. And I hope as we'll be preparing for our BRRR, will then be more, these processes are processes that are more empowering. We will then look forward for the information that Productivity SA said is going to provide us. We have noted the change, the improvements in the reports in the department, but there's still a lot of areas that must be cleaned up. And when we will be calling you in the next meeting to check on those, we will monitor you. We will call you wherever we see a need to do that. So we hope that after this, you will then go back and correct the areas that have then been corrected. But we are happy. We are concerned. As the chair, I think on behalf of the committee, we are very much concerned with SEE, but we are happy that you have new management. We will call them at an appropriate time if we want to really see progress around those. Having said that, thank you very much. Until we meet again next week, because next week we'll then be adopting our report and prepare for our BRRR debate. Having said that, Those that are traveling, travel safe. Those that are going to sleep, sleep well. And those that are going to eat supper, I don't know at this time whether it's that healthy. But thank you very much. That was on a lighter note. Our meeting stand adjourned until we meet again. So bye.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, honorable
Thank you,
members.
Chair.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, honorable members.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.